So I appreciate having this great crowd out here this morning. So I'm Tom Kasari from Xmatters, and before I turn it over to Dan to share his experience with his journey in transforming his organization and becoming a more agile, automated entity, I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about business transformation, digital business transformation, and how Xmatters plays a role in that with you guys. So you guys may be aware. Let's see if we can get the slides going here. There we go. You guys may be aware of how New Relic plays a role within that modern IT organization. What you may not know is how Xmatters does so, and we'll talk about that. And I'll just take a few minutes on that. So before we start, let's just talk about digital business transformation and admit one thing. It's not easy to do. I think most of you here will agree that this is a challenge for most organizations. I've never heard a customer say that, we decided to make this transformation. We set up a meeting. We went in. We said, here's how we used to do things. Here's how it's going to work in the future. And they were successful, walked out, and they're transformed. It doesn't happen like that. There's lots of different angles that go into this, lots of different disciplines that all have to work together to make this transformation successful. So the question is, if it's so hard to do, why do we need to do it? Why do you guys undergo these digital business transformations? And it really comes back to this. So let's go ahead and build out this slide. I think there's one more. There we go. It's the business demands. It's the uptime, the quality, the reliability of your services. And it's all of these different tools that you have to support. Now, you may say this isn't something new. You guys have had to deal with this for years, and it's true. This is something IT's always had to deal with. But the difference now is that you're dealing with modern, tech-savvy customers, and they're putting more demand on your business than ever before. They're asking for bigger, better, faster, more, and they want it now. At the same time, they want quality, they want uptime, they want reliability, they want a great user experience, that neat AppDex score that New Relic provides to you guys so easily. And at the same time, you have to provide or support more and more legacy tools, right? So as your business is transforming, there are more and more tools that you have to maintain that are no longer part of the future, but still are going to be there as you make the transformation over a number of years. So what's different? If you guys have been dealing with this forever, what's different? It's the velocity, right? Those demands have exponentially increased, right? So the velocity that customers are demanding from you are much greater. And the agility that the business is demanding from you is much greater as well. You need to be able to quickly shift as your customers make changes in their buying patterns. So the traditional IT organization can't handle this. The modern IT organization can, and that's where digital business transformation comes into play. Those companies that go through this transformation successfully, they have a great chance in being successful and owning new markets and new customers. Those who don't go through the transformation or are unsuccessful, they're going to be footnotes in history. Now, whether these changes start at the grassroots level by some change agents or they come top down from an enterprise level, the only constant between them is that the only constant going forward is that there's always going to be change. And that change is complex. So for this new modern IT organization to work well, you need your people, your processes, your tools to all seamlessly work together. But that change is introducing complexity. You have these people, you have these new processes, you have these new tools, but there's still many barriers. Barriers to communication, barriers to integrations, and these barriers all reduce that velocity, reduce that agility, and really don't let you realize the promise of that transformation. And this is where Xmatters can come into play. So Xmatters takes your modern tools, your processes, your people, and brings them together to automate the DevOps Toolchain, to bring together your data flows, your process flows, enable communication automated, as well as response-driven orchestration to help you guys not just get the important information out, but get it out in a way that allows your users to decide what happens and helps automate those processes. Again, the whole idea is bringing those people, processes, and tools together so they work seamlessly, enabling you guys to reach that velocity you're looking for, as opposed to having process breakdowns, which really bring you down. And now I'm going to pass it off to Dan, because Dan has used Xmatters and New Relic as part of his transformation to achieve some of these visions.
Thanks, Tom. So I'd like to start by thanking you all for being here today. I'm really excited to talk about the challenges that a small team like mine has been navigating in a much larger IT organization during our transformation. A little bit about me. My name is Dan Russo. I am the Senior Manager and Product Owner for the Platform Group within Production Engineering at Dealertrack. Dealertrack is part of Cox Automotive, so why don't I tell you a little bit about them. Cox Automotive is changing the way the world buys, sells, and owns cars through industry-leading solutions for consumers, lenders, dealers, and the overall automotive ecosystem worldwide. You may be familiar with some of our brands, Kelley Blue Book, Auto Trader, Mannheim, Dealer.com, Dealertrack, and a host of other brands. The automotive branch of the organization is massive. We have over 30,000 team members working out of over 200 locations worldwide. But back to Dealertrack. Supporting Dealertrack from a technology perspective are 3 teams. We have software engineering, production engineering, that's the team that I work with, and shared infrastructure. So production engineering, we partner with internal customers to understand problems, develop solutions, and anticipate needs. And in our free time, we're also responsible for the health and availability of all the production and pre-production environments 24/7, 365 days a year. We use Agile to manage our workload. So we're divided into Scrum teams that work in sprints that provide features for the business, work on internal platform initiatives, and take care of break-fix, on-call rotation, and operational tasks. During the course of our work, we face 3 big challenges. The first is adapting to the change brought about by our adoption into Cox Automotive. Dealertrack joined Cox Automotive in 2015, and there are still a lot of integrations that are taking place. And we're now more interconnected than ever. As opposed to just being concerned about interdependencies between Dealertrack applications, we now need to focus on interdependencies across the entire Cox suite of products, which is a much larger scale. We also need to respond to higher level changes in the business now. These changes are driven by technology, by industry, by customers, and we're expected to respond quickly. Now, production engineering is relatively small compared to software engineering. It's about a 5-to-1 ratio. So for every 5 Scrum teams that are working in software engineering, there's 1 production engineering Scrum team supporting them. That being said, we can't afford to be the bottleneck, right? We're expected to do more, faster, and with higher quality. Finally, we're always looking for ways to improve visibility into our systems. We want to stay proactive in addressing issues before they impact our customers. We want to stay ahead of the curve when it comes to capacity. And we want to turn the vast amounts of data that we have at our fingertips into valuable, actionable knowledge. Sounds like a plan, right? Simple enough. Not so fast. We had a number of monitoring tools that all worked independently and reported independently and had different alerting structures, and we had no ability to correlate across these monitoring tools. And this was leading to extended downtime and alert fatigue as teams received a lot of white noise. Additionally, as our interdependencies grew, we had an ever-growing list of people that needed to stay up to date on product availability notifications. That, coupled with the rotating responsibilities of our cross-functional Scrum teams, led to communication breakdowns and an insane amount of administrative overhead trying to maintain on-call lists, who gets called for what product, what's the escalation list, was their contact information up to date, who went on vacation, who left the company, and it was just a lot of administrative overhead. Finally, our major incident notification process, when it really hit the fan and we had to get everyone on the phone to fix an issue, that process was time-consuming and clunky. We had one tool for conference bridging, another tool for phone notification, and another tool for email notification. And they all had to be initiated and maintained separately. It was a lot of moving pieces. The simple act of our operations team initiating a major incident took about 20 minutes. That's how long it took for people to get on the phone and actually start working on the issue. That's awful. We also had multiple ticketing systems that we would have multiple tickets in different systems created for a single major incident that also needed to be tracked and maintained separately with no visibility into each other. Finally, during a major incident, when everyone finally did get on the phone, teams would be troubleshooting, technical teams on the bridge would be collaborating, and somebody would join the bridge, and what's the first thing they do, right? They ask, what's going on? So we had to stop, provide an update, get back to work, only to have to then provide that same update, minutes later, and probably over and over and over again. We had to get those teams into a place of relative quiet so that they could troubleshoot the actual issue. We needed a broader suite of tools to provide value to our customers, and we needed technology to help us make that happen. We needed tools that could serve multiple purposes for multiple teams. So as a production engineer, is the environment healthy? God bless you. Is the environment scaled for capacity this busy upcoming weekend? As a software engineer, is the code good? What was the impact of our last deployment in pre-production? How was load test going? So we had to have, once again, tools that could serve multiple purposes for multiple teams, and yet at the same time have the same level of visibility and be speaking the same language in order to provide value to our customers. So to meet those challenges, we chose New Relic for application performance monitoring. We chose Xmatters for targeted communications. We chose Slack for collaboration, and JIRA to manage all of our ITSM needs. So what I'll do now is I'll kind of dive into each tool a little bit. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty and how we use the tools. Really what I want to talk about is what we like about them, how they help us be proactive and remove ourselves as a bottleneck, and then talk about how we put them all together, chain them together to achieve operational efficiency. First, New Relic. New Relic gives us incredible insight into how our application is performing. We use a number of the New Relic modules. We use synthetics, APM, browser, mobile, insights. We use server. We haven't moved over to infrastructure yet. And what we really get by using all those modules is a ton of synergy when you use them together. You now have the ability to correlate those alerts that you were receiving from multiple tools in the past, whether it be your synthetic monitoring tool or your instance resource monitoring tool or your application performance monitoring tool. You now have them all in one easy-to-use interface, and you can drill down from synthetics down into APM, down into server, and it correlate across those, making it much more effective for our teams, giving us, once again, the same level of visibility and getting us on the same page, speaking the same language. Xmatters. Xmatters is our communications hub. All of our alerts from our different tools, all of our notifications feed into Xmatters, and then Xmatters takes those, looks at the information within them, and routes them to the right people at the right time. That's the name of the game. What we really like about Xmatters is how easy it is as a self-service tool. As I mentioned earlier, our team is relatively small, and so we don't have the time to manage the communications across the entire organization like this. And Xmatters allows team members and groups to be self-service. So as an individual, I can maintain my own contact information, and it's actually my responsibility to maintain my own contact information. I can set my notification preferences. So if I want to receive an email for low notifications, maybe a mobile push for mediums and a phone call for high criticality issues, I can set that up myself. If I'm going on vacation in 2 weeks, right, I can go into the system and set a temporary backup for myself during that time period only without involving the operations team to keep track of who's on call and when, and probably still getting a phone call while I'm in Disney World. It's highly effective for team members to manage their own notification preferences. And as a manager, I can manage the members of my team within Xmatters. I can manage the escalations and rotations associated with them. So if I want to have my team on-call support have a day shift and a night shift, I can do that. If I want to have a round-robin approach where Bob gets the first call and Sue gets the second call and it just goes around and around, I can do that as well. It literally puts the power in the hands of our team. And subscriptions are something we heavily utilize as well. Subscriptions are great. So subscriptions allow you to specify recipients for notifications, but also expose those subscriptions so that users can subscribe themselves. So if I'm on the marketing team and I'm worried about a new product that we just rolled out and I want to get product availability notifications, I don't have to reach out to anybody to do that. I can go into Xmatters and subscribe myself, and then in a couple of weeks when I don't care anymore, I can unsubscribe myself. And that's, for us, incredibly valuable. We also use Xmatters for our major incident notification process, and I'll go more into that later on. Slack. Slack is where we get work done. As I mentioned earlier, we are spread across the office, across the country, and across the globe, and Slack allows us to collaborate without geography being an issue. So Scrum teams have channels dedicated to their sprint work. We spin up ad hoc channels on the fly where teams collaborate to work on issues as they come up. And we have our alerts feeding into Slack as well so that our operations team can see critical alerts in the same place where they're already working and collaborating on a daily basis, which is, for us, very valuable. Finally, JIRA. JIRA manages all of our ITSM needs. So incidents of all severity are created in JIRA. Recurring incidents, or major incidents for that matter, result in a problem ticket, which our problem management team manages, and they're able to link back to all the underlying incidents that were the precursor to creating the problem. So you have historical data from one ticket that you can see now what occurred to create the problem here. For long-term remediation typically requires change tickets in our system, so JIRA manages the entire approval workflow for all change tickets touching our system. And you could tie those back to the problem ticket. So from one problem ticket, I can see the incidents that led to it, and I can go in and see the change tickets that are blocking me from long-term remediation. We use JIRA for project management, so we create themes and epics that are broken down into stories and put into a common backlog that our Scrum teams then pull from during their sprints. And we even use JIRA for service desk, right? So break-fix issues that come into the service desk, and we're able to track our progress against internal SLAs to help us understand when we're actually going to be breaching our internal SLAs. So how do we put it all together? I'm going to go over two examples. One is what we would call a standard incident, and the other, a major incident. For us, a major incident is any partial or complete loss of functionality for our customers, whether it be in production or pre-production, because we have our partners testing in like UAT environments. So a standard incident, right? Let's say that there's a front-end server and Apache's failed. The server fails its health check and it pulls itself out of rotation, so there's no actual customer impact. That's good, but it's still something we should take a look at. So an alert is generated and it's sent to Xmatters. Xmatters looks at the host that's being impacted and routes it to the primary on-call engineer. The primary on-call engineer receives the alert via Xmatters. Let's say it's a medium severity, so he receives a push notification on his mobile phone. He's able to accept or escalate that issue immediately, and let's say in this instance he's already working with somebody else, so he clicks escalate. That issue then, or that notification, goes directly to his backup, who, by the way, let's say works in Sacramento, right? Not in the same office. She receives the alert, she has the bandwidth, and she clicks accept. She begins working on the issue. Maybe the issue is a little more complex than it sounds, and she can see within JIRA Service Desk now that she's going to be breaching her internal SLA soon. She's able to jump into the Slack channel that the Scrum teams have dedicated for their collaboration, get some assistance, get back on track, and resolve the issue before we breach our internal SLA. Our problem management team now comes in and can see that there have been 4 incidents this month related to this service failing on this specific host, and we probably have a bigger issue here. they can now take all those incidents, link them, and create a problem ticket, and the necessary change tickets that we could track and have visibility across the board. Now, what about a major incident? Let's say there's a new Relic synthetic check that's measuring one of our mission-critical applications, and it's failing. That type of alert is going to go to our operations team via Xmatters. They're going to receive it, and they're going to initiate a major incident. They're going to get everyone on the phone. But they don't have to go to Xmatters to do it. They go to the same place they go to create all of their incidents, which is JIRA. They go into JIRA, they create an incident, they click a flag, and there's an integration between JIRA and Xmatters now, which sends the information from JIRA, including the criticality, the product impacted, and sends it all over to Xmatters. And Xmatters takes care of everything. It begins a communication plan that sends out a phone blast to everybody who has either been subscribed or subscribed to the application that's impacted. Okay, so everybody receives a phone call. From that phone call, they're able to see what's going on, and with the press of one button, join the conference bridge, which for us, I mean, it sounds simple, but if you don't know the conference bridge number and you're writing it down or you're driving, it always causes delays for people joining bridges for us. And by letting people press a button and join directly, it's incredibly powerful. Technical teams receive one set of bridge information, and non-technical, marketing, product, business, management, they receive another conference bridge. So they're actually joining two separate bridges. And there's a liaison that kind of manages the flow of information between those two bridges, but it allows our technical teams to troubleshoot in relative peace. If you miss that phone call, no big deal. You're going to get an email notification that you could join from as well. And you're going to get a push notification on your mobile device if you have that set up. Now, also included within that information is the Slack channel that's been created to collaborate and address this issue. So you're able to now jump into the Slack channel along with everyone else, and that's exactly what teams do, right? The technical teams receive the phone call, they join the bridge, they jump into the Slack channel, and in this specific instance, they jump into New Relic because we have a synthetic check that's failing. They click on the synthetic check that's failing, they drill down, and they can see maybe there's a database call that's taking a long time. In the past, we would then work with the operations team to say, okay, call the on-call DBA, let's get them on the phone. They would join 5 minutes later, and we would explain what was going on. That would take another 5 minutes, and then they would get to work. Right now, they have received the same phone call as everybody else. They've joined the same bridge. They're in the same Slack channel, and they're looking at the same New Relic information that everyone else is looking at. So they're already hitting the ground running, and they're able to resolve that issue that much more quickly. After the dust settles, our problem management team takes over again to, once again, create a problem, link to the incident, and the corresponding changes. But within that problem ticket is not just what the issue was and what we did to resolve it, but also operational information, like when did the first notification go out to our internal and external partners? What was the content of those notifications? How often did updates go out? Who joined the bridge and when? So that we're not only improving technically, but we're improving operationally as well. So was it worth it? Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't worth it, I think we'd have a different presentation today. It was definitely worth it. We were greatly able to reduce the mean time to resolve, and the impact of our P1 and P2 incidents. By the way, by not making any technical improvements to our systems, right? Just the sheer ability to decrease the amount of time it takes for people to get on a bridge, collaborating and working together. That 20 minutes we saved during the major incident notification process right there is huge. The ability to jump into a tool and correlate across multiple levels, whether it be application or server or database, not jumping from tool to tool. Once again, very big for us. And while we were doing this, we created a self-service model that empowered our teams and removed us as the bottleneck. So we're not done. Obviously, this is kind of like a phased approach here, and there are certainly some things we want to do to improve what we've already done. One of them is automated responses to alerts. So chaining now our alerting system with our runbook automation tool, so that when an alert is generated and there's a common action taken by an engineer, let's automate that action, and let's have our runbook automation tool take care of it for us and tell us when it's done. We want to improve our bidirectional communication with Xmatters. So instead of just letting engineers click accept or escalate, why not give them the ability to execute that same script with the press of a button? Something to think about. We want to improve our, I know it's a buzzword, but improve our chat ops to allow our teams to get richer and more detailed information directly from Slack. So allow them to go against Xmatters and see maybe who's on call directly from Slack. See what groups are on call, maybe initiate a notification directly from Slack. And finally, we want to better standardize how we're using New Relic to monitor microservices and containers and cloud applications as these become more prevalent in our environment. I brought up self-service before, and I just wanted to touch on 2 more points quickly. On two little projects that we worked on that really exemplify how we're pushing self-service here with our team. One is an integration we did with Status Page IO. For those of you who aren't familiar with Status Page IO, it's an operational dashboard that you can expose to internal or external customers that provides a snapshot of the availability of products or environments or applications and the status of the underlying components that support those applications. So we use it internally for our teams. It's internal customer use only. But as you can see, we have it broken out by our different environments. We were frequently having issues where when there was an environmental issue, we would get multiple phone calls and multiple tickets created for the same issue. And we would have duplicate tickets we would need to sift through and sort out. And so by now providing this dashboard to our customers, they can go there first and see if the issue they're about to report has already been reported, and they can stay up to date with the latest notifications on the status of the issue they were going to report. It's reduced the amount of white noise that we get from tickets. We've integrated it with Xmatters so that I can post an incident to Status Page from Xmatters. So make it part of the operations team existing process. When they create that incident that generates an Xmatters notification, have it update Status Page as well. We've integrated it with New Relic. So when a synthetic check fails, it can create an event on the dashboard and then update the underlying components status as well so that it removes a lot of the administrative work of managing this manually. And there's more automation we want to build in the future. Another pretty cool thing we've done is we've built a Terraform provider around New Relic synthetics. So we were having a lot of issues where users wanted to use synthetics, especially our software engineering team. They wanted to use synthetics, but they didn't know how. They didn't know how to get started. They didn't know how to use it. Prior to New Relic improving their role-based access, they didn't have the necessary permissions, perhaps, to create a synthetic check or create a notification channel. And finally, there was no standardization around how people were actually creating these synthetic checks. So we created a Terraform provider around this so that users now can store their configurations in GitHub via pull request. They can make any modifications they want. It gets code reviewed, and this is something that they're very familiar with already. It gets merged in, and once it's merged, Terraform automatically executes a plan which builds these synthetic checks automatically within New Relic, which is great because now we have teams that are really embracing synthetics. They have a library of existing checks they can reference, and we can enforce standards on the way in, like naming convention or making sure that every synthetic check that's added has the Xmatters notification channel added so we can ensure that every notification is going to Xmatters on the way in. Just wait for the slide. There we go. All right, so we learned some lessons along the way, and those are the lessons I want to leave you with today. They are purposely not technical. The first is work on your process first. I'm a tools guy. I love tools. I'm probably weird. I don't know if you guys love tools. I mean, we're all here, so I guess maybe we love tools in some sense. But tools can't make up for poor process. If you get your process down first, the tools will take you that much further. Next is start small, right? Don't try to monitor everything all at once. Don't try to integrate all of your tools all at once. Start small, measure how you're doing, and make necessary adjustments along the way. Speaking of measurement, know how you'll measure success. I think too often we measure success by whether a project was done or not done. That is definitely not the measure of success, right? Understanding what quantifies success, what your expected results are, and measuring against those will give you a much better idea if you actually are successful and help you adjust course along the way. Always keep self-service in mind when building out these tools and platforms. Your team can't do everything, obviously, so you don't want to be the bottleneck. But more than that, by adopting a self-service approach, you are putting the tools in your team's hands, the user's hands, that much earlier, and allowing them to help shape what the actual tool does. Because pretty soon, at least from what I've seen, they'll be building things that you never dreamed of. Finally, be transparent in your efforts. Provide frequent and honest updates, and demo early and often. You definitely don't want to wait until the end of the project to find out what you've built is not what they want, right? You want to demo along the way frequently so that you could take the feedback and help shape the tool that you're building. And that's all I have. I'm going to hand it back off to Tom. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Dan. Very exciting to see what kind of outcomes you can get when your people, processes, and technologies are really working together. So I want to end today by talking about, if we can get this going, the Xmatters Atlassian DevOps Maturity Survey. So Atlassian, leader in the DevOps space, we worked with them to come up with a maturity model that measures customers in a number of different areas. So there's culture and organizational alignment, there's operations and support, continuous delivery, design and architecture, and test and verification. So we came up with a comprehensive survey that can measure you across all these to let you know how you're performing and to let you know how your competitors are doing as well. Now, for today's session, I just want to focus on one piece of this. We're not going to have time to go over every part of this survey, but I will at the end show you how to get access to it and how to actually do a survey yourself. But I want to focus on monitoring. So we asked companies what they were monitoring. We gave them 4 categories and said, are you monitoring any or all of these? So things like infrastructure, applications, all the way up to user experience. And not surprisingly, people are monitoring a lot of things. So if you look over here, in terms of application and services, very high percentage. Infrastructure, high percentage as well. It starts to move down as you get to transactions and user experience, but again, that's why we're here, we're looking to improve in those areas, and that's one of those things that New Relic is going to be able to help us do. So they're monitoring everything. The question, though, is, are they able to use all of this data that they have in an effective way? And if you look at some of the survey results here, yeah, there's a number of folks who will admit that they're using this well, but there's an even large percentage that will say they are not, right? So they're gathering this information, but it's not making it into the hands of the right folks. It's not actionable. It's not really changing the way they do business. They're just gathering more that they're not doing much with. And this feeds into production issues. If you're not gathering these, or if you're not taking these metrics that you're gathering and make sure it's in the hands of the right folks, it's actionable, that people are doing something about it, then what you get is production issues. So as you can see with some of the numbers on the screen up here, we still have 40 or more % who say they are still experiencing application issues in production. Some that have to roll back, some that have continuous delivery that can roll forward, some that will say, hey, our processes are working well enough that we're capturing most of these in pre-production, they're not even making it out there. But again, a variety of different ways of looking at this. Now, for those production issues, there's still major challenges in major incidents. So just as Dan was mentioning before, some of these numbers here, I'll show you what those mean. The 50%. So that's how many organizations that responded that said they still have to wait for some other organization, some other part of their IT department to declare the major incident, even if they know, even if their services and their systems are telling them that this is happening. 43% still use manual processes to keep people engaged, keep people informed about what's going on. 34% say they have to wait for subject matter experts. Again, just as Dan was explaining. It's now we need another team member or another team to be involved here, and we have to wait until they join. We have to bring them up to speed on what they've missed and take an additional 10 minutes before we're back to resolution. So you can see a lot of the challenges that our customers are having in this area. Now, again, this is just a part of this overall survey. The survey, again, goes across and provides a number of different detailed benefits and things for you guys to consider. So I invite you to come read the full survey report and to take an assessment on your own. So both of these are available at the link that you see here. And this is over, we have cards at the Xmatters booth that have this link as well. But you'll have access to the survey to see how you're doing or to see how others are doing within your industry, to see where they're succeeding, where some of their challenges are, and then you can take your own survey to see how you measure up against that. With that, I'd like to see if there's any, we have a few minutes to see if there's any questions. I want to thank you all for joining, but see if there's any questions for myself or for Dan. And there's one last order of business here. So we did have a raffle for all those who attended today's session. Sure. Let's see. So our winner is 537087. So if you have that, come by the Xmatters booth, and your prize will be waiting for you there. With that, thank you all. Appreciate it. Have a great rest of the show.
Thank you.